Good morning, everybody. Danny and Wanda back from Deep South Homestead. Guys, look at these Cherokee Yellow Wax Beans. We had people in the beginning that said, oh, those are planted, that's fake. Those were put out the same day they were planted when I was fertilizing them with the cub and plowing them and all this. Telling me I was using all kind of herbicides and stuff. I said, I mean, you look at this. Look at these plants here. Look at these big old beautiful beans on these things. Look at this. Now we had that hailstorm, knocked them all down, knocked them into the dirt, but that's okay.
We got water.
They'll wash, that's for sure. We got to come through here this morning. They are blooming like crazy.
And now we have two different
ages. Yeah. What happened was when we first put our first crop out, we believe in planting. If there's no more danger of frost, we believe in putting stuff in the ground. And when we did, it come a huge, massive rain right after it and just flooded everything. And a lot of the beans rotted because the soil was just too cool. So immediately, when the sun came back out right after and the ground dried up enough, I hand planted, replanted it again, and this is the results of it here, you know, and it is done fantastic. Now the ones that survived the very first flood began to pop the ground way ahead of the others, and lots of those are in here mixed in, and they'll have a lot more beans on them than these will, because these are just now loading up with blooms. And what we're trying to do is just go through and not let any of them get ahead of the others, because if you let the beans stay on the plants too long, the plant thinks it's gone to seed and it quits producing. So we try to go through, even though it's not a big picking right now, we go through and try to get all these beans off of there that's really ready, so that the plant doesn't get tricked, you know, into thinking that that it's going to seed. We try to be real gentle with them when they're young like this, because they will break up on you if you're not careful. Because these plants are growing so fast, they're so tender, and they're so loaded with blooms. You have to learn to put your hand underneath them and lean them over like this to be able to look for the beans on them, rather than sticking your hands all down in the tops, breaking the leaves on them and stuff like that. But before I go much further, I got something I want to show you. These are my Mr. Al Evangeline sweet potatoes. Look, they're already, just in the last couple of days,
wanting to bloom.
They're blooming and starting to put on runners. Just a week ago, they were just sitting here kind of dormant.
Like that right there. They were kind of like that one.
These two rows are the Evangelines right here. These are the white ones down here. And then another row of Evangelines and another row of white ones.
And you plant sporadically when they're ready, the slips.
Well, we raise our own slips for our own potatoes here. And I plant them whenever they get ready to be put out. And for somebody to tell you that you can't plant sweet potatoes early in the Deep South, that's a lie. Because I planted these as soon as the danger of frost was gone, late March. And these things took off. I mean, they have just now begun to take off. Sweet potatoes can be planted anytime it's not going to frost. Now, yes, the soil can be cold and they will sit there and not really take off, but they're building a root system while they're doing that. So, guys, you can plant sweet potatoes anytime it's not going to frost. And as long as you've got 125 days until the first frost, you still have time to put them in. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of July. In the Deep South, we can plant almost year-round here, except for a short period of time in the winter. And look, I mean, the results is here. Now, I've got to plow these because the little weeds is coming up in here. And I really need to, I got a few more to set out.
You going to get the cub?
Well, I might.
I think you want to drive the cub. I think
I'd love to drive the cub. You know me, I love my cub tractor. I have to change the plows on it. And guys, one of the things about letting them grow on the ground like this and planting in the soil is that they put roots out on all the vines, where when you put them in containers, and they just kind of grow out of the containers and lay out on the ground and stuff like that, many of them don't have a chance to root out on the ground to help supply energy for the vines. Now these Evangelines, they'll grow from here to that fence over yonder. And this whole, they'll eventually take over all this out here where these snap beans are. That's why we're trying and hoping that the snap beans come on in pretty quick and get over with, because they're gonna grow all into this. Now we'll train them as much as we can to stay on this side here, but at some point they'll take over. Okay guys, I just went over to our little Remington solar greenhouse and I got some more of my white sweet potatoes over there, the little slips. They are kind of small and maybe not the best in the world, but we're going to put them out anyway because we don't believe that there's anything too little or anything like that. And see, them don't even have roots on them, and none of these has ever had roots on them hardly. I just take them and they're little. Don't let this cause it's little discourage you. I just punch them down in there, and this soil is still kind of damp. I'll come back and water them in a few minutes. Now this one has a few roots on it. Sweet potatoes are pretty hardy. Now these are home raised. Now these are not ones that we bought or got in from anywhere else. We have really good success raising our own. What we like about this is I pull these up like 5 minutes ago and they go right back into the ground. There's no shipping shock or anything to that nature. And we're using a little forked stick to just shove them in the ground. I'm not really spending a lot of time bending over. You see the little root systems on them there. They don't have a lot of roots, but sweet potatoes really don't need a ton of roots.
You can take branches, can't you?
Yeah, you can just chop the branches off on them if you want to. If they start running, making long vines, you can technically just chop the vines off. And my daddy used to tell me that they call those vine potatoes. And he said they didn't make as big of a potato as doing this right here. He said, but it was always a really good slick potato that was just good for baking, really. The dirt's just damp enough it sticks in my forks on my stick here. That's a little bitty one. See, I keep everything, even something that little, I still put it out there.
And usually we don't lose any. I mean, you can see he's done, the row is just full.
I must have.
You got one that's got a hole in the bottom?
Well, it just did. I've had these taters in it now about 10 minutes and
now it's dripping water.
Now all of a sudden it starts deciding it wants to bring a hole. It was sitting there pouring on my foot and I couldn't figure out what was going on. They're not the big old long ones that you get when you order them or anything like that, but to be honest with you, it ain't never really mattered here.
No, as you can see, some over there are already blooming and running.
Yeah, they take off and do just fine. So don't let the length of them be a discouragement to you.
The hardiness. And even if they're not this hardy, they will grow.
They'll grow.
Sweet potatoes are a superfood.
Yes, they are big time. Some of my favorites. That stick has done got wet. And that's one thing right here I want to show y'all. This will happen to your stick. When the ground is really wet like ours is, the tater gets stuck in that right there. I guess that's the reason a lot of times when the ground was a particular way, my daddy would punch a hole and he'd make us kids go along there and drop them in and pour the water in on them. My hack with the watering can. When you're doing sweet potatoes or tomatoes or any plants like that.
Makes it easier and it don't splatter it everywhere. It goes more where you want it.
You can target the plant. Now this one is really full like this one is.
It's hard to bend it.
Well, I don't bend over. I'm having to pour it from way up high, and if I was bending over, I'd be nailing it every time. But all right, so I got the taters out, and you know me, I can't stand to see them little bit of weeds in here, so I'm gonna go get the cub. Take me a few minutes and get it all set up. I'm gonna come back over here and see if I can't run through this a few times and knock some of these weeds out of here and make this thing look a little better. Y'all know how I am with the cub. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.